Book 2012, Talking Back to Facebook.
Correct.
So if you were to talk back to Facebook today after this week's and this year's revelations, what would you say?
Wow, what a catastrophe. You guys really need to clean up your act. And I would say to Cheryl, you know, in the case of the research app that they were paying people to use, I completely disagree that a 13-year-old knows why you're paying them $20 a month. They just are happy to get that little bonus.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second. They said in their defense that the disclosure forms were clear, that everybody did it voluntarily, and that it was a small, maybe 5% group that were teenagers.
I would say the disclosure forms were as clear as the 87-page privacy policy that you get on your iPhone that you never read and you just check yes, accept. And I think that's the issue, actually, is that the average kid actually may be smarter than the average parent these days about tech, but they don't read those disclosure forms. And the truth is, it was a sort of a bait and switch kind of thing, which is exactly why Apple shut them down. And I thought that was an important moment, if you will, in recent tech history, what Apple did to both Facebook and Google.
Right, and let's talk about that. I mean, does it make you uncomfortable at all that Apple was able to significantly hurt the business and its internal operations with a flick of a switch?
No, it does not make me uncomfortable. In fact, it makes me respect Apple and Tim Cook and the other folks who made the decision. Because, look, until we get more common sense regulation of the tech industry, which, as you know, Brad, Common Sense Media is leading the charge for, like the Privacy Act in California last year, I actually think you need the better minds in the industry to stand up and say this is just wrong. And clearly, Apple and Tim are taking the lead role.
Although we should say that they have had their own little skirmishes lately, the FaceTime bug that they have yet to fix.
Agreed, it is a bug, but they were honest about it. They weren't defensive, and they actually went out, and I'll tell you this, I think Tim standing up to Facebook and Google is incredibly important, and the company do that. Look, Mark Benioff, as we all know, has stood up to Facebook and talked particularly about addiction and attention issues. I think it's important for the tech industry to speak out, because remember, the tech industry is not monolithic. A lot of times people think the tech industry broadly. Oh, no. Apple is very different than Facebook. And I actually think what Apple did in this case was completely thoughtful, respectful. They shut it down after a day. They taught them a lesson. And in the absence of common sense regulation by the government, who've been missing in action, I actually think what Apple did is excellent.
And you make a good point by saying the tech industry is not monolithic. You know, a lot of questions are being asked right now of Facebook and to some extent Google.
Right.
What kind of questions should we be asking other tech companies like Amazon, which is itself building a very large advertising?
Correct. I agree with you. And I think that your last segment with my friend Steve Case was quite interesting in that regard. I think we have to be asking folks, what's your responsibility to society? I actually think, look, tech has created so much great benefits for all of us, but it's also, there have been many unintended consequences, particularly in the realm of Facebook and Instagram, et cetera. And I think we've seen that, the hacking of our democracy, the impact on children, the privacy issues. We're coming to terms with that with as a society. So you have to see leadership by the tech industry itself, and you also have to see common sense government regulation. And I think what you saw last year in California, the effort we led to have a comprehensive privacy protection for consumers, we need more of that. But we also need to understand that the really smart, good people in the tech industry need to stand up and do the right thing.
When Cheryl and Mark say they want national, federal privacy legislation, when they say that Facebook has changed and they're focusing efforts on privacy, on monitoring fake news, do you take them at their word?
No, it's all about putting your money where your mouth is. I think you have to just show up, because look, I really know Cheryl well and respect her. I respect Mark tremendously for the business they built. But I think with the series of problems that we've seen on the democracy side, on the transparency side, on the kids front, they owe the public a massive changes in the company's behavior. And quite honestly, stop being defensive, get out there and change things. It's been a great company, but it has enormous problems right now.
So what significant steps would you like to see them take that they haven't taken already?
They should shut down Messenger Kids. We've called on that, and we did it again this week because of the friendly fraud of kids as whales, where they're having in-app purchases.
Explain that. That was information that came out of a lawsuit that showed that kids were inadvertently running up very large bills on Facebook.
And Facebook was keeping the money and calling them whales like gamblers in Las Vegas, right? So that's just unethical. That's just inappropriate. And I think what we need to see is fundamental behavior change. And Messenger Kids is aimed at kids under 13. Kids under 13 don't need to be on a social network. You don't need Facebook Messenger Kids. I would shut that down today. And I would stop doing things like they did with the research app, which was just a way to get teens to reveal their private information to Facebook, which they could then monetize. I think you have to practice what you preach. And I think that this is a really big challenge to Mark and Sheryl and the rest of the people who run the company. They are good people in many ways. They've made great contributions to our society, but they need to stand up and change major practices at Facebook. And we need the tech industry to have honest discussions. What Tim and Apple did is right, and they should be applauded. And it may have pissed off Facebook and Google. Too bad. They were standing up for what they believe and what their policies are, and we applaud them for that.